All right, so looking at our diagram here again, we have now successfully established a connection to the database using PDO and MySQLi. So that means that we have finished up with the part that has to do with connecting to the database. So the next critical aspect now is the part that has to do with really querying the database for data, adding new data to the database, and doing all sort of operations with the database. And this is really going to be the meat of the whole thing that we are putting together. So we're going to continue the same approach, test-driven development, and we will try to be flexible because of time. Some things we're going to try to write some test cases, and other things we're going to write, and then later we test them out to see if everything works fine. So let's now look at this diagram again. You can see right here that I have a class called the query builder. And basically I have two other query builder, MySQLi query builder and also PDO query builder. And here we have this interface. So there are going to be a couple of changes to the diagram that we have here. It's not going to be like the way it is right now. For the connection aspect, we actually did it the way it is here, but I have looked at this again and I felt that we need to make some changes to make it really flexible. So we're going to start by getting rid of the interface. So we're not going to have this interface. We are going to have this query builder class, and it's going to be an abstract class. And then we're going to have these two classes, and there will be a few methods here that are going to change as we go along, and I'll be adding some few more too. All right, so let's get into the code and just begin by writing a test case, and we see it fail, and then begin creating the classes to ensure that our test case is passed. So we're going to start by writing a test case. So let's come inside of our test folder, unit, and then we want to have a test case for query builder. So we're going to say query builder test. So if you don't know, a query builder in this sense is just going to be the abstraction of how we get data from the database, or how we update data, or how we create new record in database. So this is going to pretty much handle all of those aspects for us. And then we can have other implementations that allows us to do things in an extremely easy way. So we're going to have a test here. And the first test that I want to write here will be to see if we can actually just do a raw query to the database. Okay, so we're going to say public function test it can perform raw query. And here what we want to do will be to create a variable called result, and then it should be equal to query builder. So let's say somehow we need to have a query builder here. Okay, so we could make that a property of this class. So let's say private query builder. And then we could say this query builder. And then we want to perform a raw query. So let's call it raw. And then we can pass it a query. So let's say select from reports. Okay, so let's say with this we can actually grab record from the database. But before we're able to grab record, we need to already create a table, or we should create a table that actually has record. So we're going to write another test, public function test it can create records. And then we're going to say this. Let's say we have the ID of the record that was created. This is how we want things to be like. So we're going to select the table that we want to insert into. So let's call that table reports. And then we're going to call a method called create. And then we're going to pass this data. Okay, so this is going to be data, an array of data. Okay, and when we create the record, we expect to get back an ID, which will be the last inserted ID for that specific record. So right now, everything's going to fail. If we attempt to actually run this, it's going to fail because we don't have any of the things set up. But we're just going to keep going. Going to write one more public function test, it can perform select query. So if you look back at the diagram again, you know, I said we're going to remove some things, but there are a few things that we're going to have here, okay? So we have the role, which is the one that I'm already using now. We have create, we have select, okay? And then we have table. Okay, so now I've actually made use of three, which is table, create, and role. I'm going to make use of select, and then subsequently we're going to make use of others too. And we also have where. Okay, so like this is a where clause to specify a condition. So let's come back again to here, and I'm going to say results is equal to this query builder. This query builder, let's say table again. So we want to specify the table. So table is going to be reports. Then we want to say select. And here we can specify the feeds that we actually want to select. So say we want to select everything. Okay, we could put an asterisk there. And then we can say where a specific condition is satisfied, where ID is equal to 1. And then we can also keep chaining on and say we want to get the first record. So I hope you're seeing the way that this is coming out, okay? So I want to make a query that involves using a where clause to the database. So I want to select everything where the ID is equal to 1. Then I just grab the first one. This is going to be just returning 1 record. Okay, so what about the situation where we want to select with different conditions? Okay, so I'm going to grab this and then put here. Test can perform select query with multiple where clause. Multiple where clause. Okay, so what that means is that here I could have another where clause. I could say where, and then I could specify something else. Let's say the report type. So let's say report underscore type is equal to, so I could also do this. So it's equal to, and then pass in the value. Let's say type 1, report type 1. And then we still get the first one. Okay, so let's just look at this again. This is the idea. When I eventually begin to write the code that makes up the class, I want to be able to do something like this. Okay, so this is the result that I want to get at the end of the day. So just being able to imagine this and write it out as a test case, a lot of advantages, because it now helps me to think in the right direction. And when I run the test, it fails, I know that I have to create this specific thing, and like that. So as I said before, we're going to try to make things a bit faster, because if we want to go all the way TDD, then we're going to really spend a lot of time. But you get the idea. This is how we would think about things that we want to do. We want to implement this, and then we can begin by writing test cases. All right, so here we can then say assert or self assert. Self assert is int. Okay, so what we get from here should be an integer. Okay, so ID. Or we could just say not empty. Assert not null. ID. And then for the next one, we can also do some really basic assertion. Let's just say that it is also not null for now. Means that we can actually get a result when we run this query. And then for this, we want to ensure that whatever we get as the ID is equal to this value that we have here. So we can say self assert same. So we expect to get 1, then we can just cast this to an integer, then say result ID. And also we might want to assert that the result is also not null. Then we can do the same here. Then we can duplicate this and then say report type. and just grab this. Should be a string, and then this here. Okay. So obviously if we run this, it's going to fail because we don't have anything in place. Anyway, let's just run it. So we could say vendor bin PHPUnit or test folder, and maybe we want to filter it, dash filter, and then we want to say query builder test. We can also do test bus. Okay, so we can say dash test docs. Okay, so we have 4 errors. Everything is failing. Okay, call to a member function raw or none. This is because we don't even have the query builder to start with. So let's get back again to the test editor. And here we're going to have a method, public function setup. Okay, so setup is the PHPUnit inbuilt method that you can call and do things before the test actually runs. So here we're going to say this query builder is going to be equal to new query builder. Okay, so we don't have this class yet, but we're going to be doing something really different later. But for now, so that we can actually begin creating this class. And then we can run the test again. Still going to fail because now we don't have that class query builder. All right, so we get still 4 errors. And right here on the top, it says class query builder not found. All right, so in the next video, we're now going to begin fixing all of this problem one by one. And in the end, all of the test cases and even more that we're going to write should be passing.